She's running the computer.
I'm in the group.
She's video.
Oh,
And
you gonna let that freak video?
she volunteered.
Who else is?
Katie, but she's not here yet.
Did she do work? Okay, let's go.
And some revisions and comments and things.
Let's go.
Okay, so our presentation is Critical Thinking in the 21st Century, and these are the authors of it. Next slide. The definition, there were actually several definitions that we found, but this one was preferred because it refers to it as an art of analyzing and evaluating thinking with a view to improving it. And what I looked at was the fact that in an art, it's not something that can just be merely memorized. It's something that's a skill that has to be honed over time. And you have a group of tools and things that you learn that you can use to look at thinking as far as when you look at an object, or you look at information or video or a photo, whatever the thought process that went into it. And then it begins to generate questions, and once you begin to generate those questions, then you find a way maybe to improving it or finding problems with the thinking that went into it. And then this particular quote from one of the videos I researched, I liked it because it says it is the mark of an educated mind to be able to entertain a thought without accepting it. When you hear a thought and you think about it and assimilate the information, but you may have to consider it and see if there's any problems with it like that. Next slide. These are some of the skills that are involved in critical thinking, which is knowledge, identification, recall of information, comprehension, application, analysis, synthesis, evaluation. All of these are not things that you just sit down and memorize. You actually take all that information, you are able to link things together, the who, the what, the when, the where, and the how. Rather than just merely memorizing it, you're linking it to other things. The same as your comprehension is your ability to put information in your own words, not just merely regurgitate what you've heard or memorize things. Application, once you actually comprehend something and you can apply it and use an idea, the same as like if you learn the definition of a square, that does you very little good in real life unless you're a carpenter and you're needing to make sure a building or a structure or something that you're doing is square. Once again, analysis, that takes you, maybe you're not the guy that built the building, but you can look and say, is that square? Here's the definition of a square, and apply it to that.
What's the telephone is right here? Yours?
Then synthesis, you can take ideas and you can actually form a new judgment, and then evaluation, the idea of taking all that together, looking at information, looking at a photo, something like that, putting it all together and seeing if it's as correct as what you think. Go ahead. Next slide. Now the importance here is you can look at something and you can say that's complete crap. I mean, you can look at information that somebody's given to you. You can rationalize things and take various disciplines of knowledge and apply it to other things. One of the things that I've used this for is I'm actually a certified mechanic, and there have been instances where that I've been able to use my knowledge in auto mechanics to relate to other principles in other areas for me to be able to understand it better. And then this is one of the big ones, is asking questions. You'll find that anybody that has a very weak principle or weak stance on something, once you begin to ask questions, it begins to fold and fall in on itself. And then it provides a defense against bias, deception, and delusion. I mean, that will actually become relevant here momentarily. In the 21st century, we've got Photoshop, video editing, blogging, podcasting. We've got an information overload at this time. I mean, you get on the internet, you can find information about anything. But is it good information? I mean, a lot of young girls are looking at pictures of these gorgeous women in magazines, and they're saying, I want to look like that, starving themselves, hurting themselves to try to look like that. And the fact is they're looking at something that's fake. And if they can think critically about that and say, you know what, a guy went in and edited this to make this woman's waist smaller, her breasts larger, her proportions better, then they're going to realize, hey, this is not real, and I need to live in a real world. The same with video editing and blogging. You can find a blog that says pretty well anything that you want, but that doesn't make it factual. And when you look at that blog, you're going to use critical thinking skills to be able to say, this might not be the best information out there. This is kind of a restatement, but what it does is, here's where you dwell if you don't think critically. You make rash conclusions. You kind of engage in mystification, and you don't like questions, and you just basically take things at face value, whereas you have intellectual discipline and a clear expression of ideas and acceptance and personal responsibility for your own thinking. It means if you make a statement and it's your opinion, you better be able to support it, having thought critically about the stance. And if you don't, that's going to be a problem for you, because somebody, a critical thinker, is going to say, you know what, that's complete and utter BS that you just found out. One of the applications that we thought of is to view a couple of selected advertisements and critique the use of the ambiguous terms and images to potentially mislead the audience, and then students will write an open letter to the company on the class Facebook page asking questions to alleviate the ambiguity, because a lot of advertisements, you know, they make claims and they use words like virtually all the time and 60% of the time it works every time, things like that. And if a student can learn to recognize those things in an advertisement, they're going to start using critical thinking skills and finding out that these things that are being said in these ads, once they start asking questions, they might begin to unravel. We actually have a sample here of this Rice Krispies, and I guess as far as cereals go, it is a little healthier, but it says, now help support your child's immunity. And we would have a student say, support is a somewhat ambiguous term, because, you know, support would be like if 5 people were lifting something up and one person was lifting a half a pound and the rest were lifting the other 150. And, you know, so you would look at this and say, okay, now what does this 25% daily value of antioxidants and nutrients and these vitamins and everything, is that 25% of each one of them, 25% of them all together? Once you start asking these questions, you'll find that you know, you'll be able to analyze things and see how good the information actually is.
You got it wrong. Immunity that I kill you and I don't have to go to jail. Immunity.